Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School.
This week we're going to begin our International Horror Festival with 2017's Revenge.
Let's dive on in. All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see /hear, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what?
Find good media, Sherlock.
That's right, they certainly can. We got festivals, we have 101s, punishment reviews, that one scenes, and we've decided to start a new festival. You may have noticed that we did miss a Halloween special episode.
True. I know. I was
Sometimes
sad about
you
that.
just can't
Timing
plan.
was off. We should have planned for it better.
Yeah, it's fine though. So instead, in lieu of that,
Yes.
we're doing a whole swath of horror-related media for you guys.
Absolutely. Yep. International horror specifically. You wanted to do this festival.
Yes.
Although I did have some suggestions and we're doing some stuff.
Yes.
As well. And I hadn't seen this movie. What made you choose this festival and this movie?
So for the festival, I think I've been thinking about it for a while. I saw a couple of movies that we will be reviewing. I saw the movie Baskin, the Turkish film, and also the Mexican film Tigers Are Not Afraid. And after seeing both of those, I was like, God, these are so good, and I don't really know, like in the deep recesses of like subreddits, people talk about these movies, but they're just not discussed as much. And I know that, you know, you're not a guy who necessarily seeks out a ton of horror, but you love good stuff when you see it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so I know that, and we've always had great conversations around stuff, whether that be that it's like super highbrow or if it's schlocky. It's like when it's good, when it hits, you're like, yeah it's hitting,
I mean, it's just like a song. If it's catchy, like, okay, like it's a good song. It's just stuck in my head, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's, but yeah, no. And obviously any international representation of any movies, please go watch international film. It will expand your mind. It will show you perspectives from different cultures. It will give you all of these things that you need to do, which is, you know, I think super important for people to do and experience, even if they're not going to go out on their own adventures and do that. That's a great way to access the world of another culture. And, you know, I think it's so important to watch international movies and film, why it always pisses me off when people try and remake.
Yeah, because they're like, I don't want to have to read.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my God, just give a quarter of that budget towards promotion for that other one. Exactly. Or something like that, and celebrate an anniversary, or make it a bigger cult favorite and make it more recognized.
Well, and we exist in a different world today, because all these movies are movies that were made in the last decade. And I think that we exist in a different world today where it's like you can have Bong Joon-ho get up and talk about his influences, and they're really 90% of them are the same influences that we all have, right? It's like, he's like, yeah, well, I'm crazy about Scorsese because I'm not an idiot. And you're like, oh, well, okay, and I guess they see Scorsese films in South Korea. And you're like, of course.
Absolutely. Those are some of the best ones. Oh my God, they're amazing. That's a whole nother festival we could do. We could do easily 10 films from that.
Easily.
Anyways, you know, this is an interesting film from a female perspective. Coralie Fargeat, I think is how I say it. It looks like the only other thing I saw that she had done was an episode of The Sandman. And this is basically a movie about some dumbass who brings his mistress on a guy's trip.
Yes, that's about right. That's right.
That's as deep as the plot goes.
That's
honestly.
as deep as the plot goes. And I will say, as a good jumping off point in terms of like the subgenre of horror that this movie represents, I mean,
why this film?
So there's a long-standing subgenre of horror movies that have never really been my favorite, although some important directors have dabbled in it, which is really the rape revenge horror subgenre, right? I mean, you can go all the way. I mean, Ingmar Bergman, you know, has one of these. I mean, Straw Dogs is another one of these. And then when you get into the 70s with the horror exploitation scene, you have I Spit on Your Grave. You have Last House on the Left. That's Wes Craven. There's lots of these, right? All the way up to something like Irreversible, I think, has as its subplot a rape revenge sort of bent to it.
Oh, a big bent, yeah.
But I would say most of those movies, the revenge portion is done by a man that is in a relationship, whether that be a fatherly relationship or a best friend or a boyfriend or a husband, gets the revenge upon the rapists. And all of that woman's agency is kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And it's always through a male gaze, right? Like even when you are trying to say, no, this is about female empowerment, you're like, yeah, but you're a guy making this. So like it's problematic all the way down to its roots, right?
Sure.
And I think that's what makes it so fascinating here is that a woman wrote and directed this.
Sure. Yeah. And honestly, the first part of it is very obviously chauvinistic and terrible and awful and just bad scenarios all around. I mean, she's lap dancing and these guys came early, I guess, a couple days or something. And anyways, but like just from the beginning, you know,
can
like,
see it from a mile away.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, she basically turns into the Predator in this movie.
Well, and I would say this, I think the other part that's really fascinating that is very different from your typical rape revenge movies also is that the men, you know, think about a movie like Straw Dogs, the men attack a woman who seems very pious, right? Virginal, right? She didn't have this coming. Yeah. And that, again, super problematic. I love the fact that you said the director's name and I can't.
Coralie Fargeat.
Coralie Fargeat. I think the fact that she makes our main character here very comfortable in her sexuality, although there might be a naivety to it, it's also like, sure, she should be able to give whoever the fuck she wants a lap dance and not get raped for it, technically, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But I think that I really like that she leaned into that to be like, yeah, let her, even if it is that she's naive and doesn't realize the level of danger that she's in.
The right to do that. Yeah.
Right, doesn't give the guy the right to do it. And boy, all three of these men learn their lessons. But I think that idea of her leaning into that is really interesting and also really cool, right? That she's like, yeah, she's in a bikini because she gets to be in a bikini. And that still doesn't mean
if
you
I
get
look
to do
like
this.
her, I would be in a bikini too.
I mean, that's all I would do is just... but yeah, it is really great though to see her in the beginning here, seeming a little vapid, seeming super hypersexualized. She's got the Lolita lollipop in her mouth and the sunglasses, and
just everything,
the spangly
every
earrings.
Trigger for like,
it's just spot on.
Yeah,
and you're right. The guys show up a day early, and that's after they've had their total sexcapade before we find out like, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. His wife's at home with a kid. You
kind of assume nothing good about any of these characters.
The second the helicopter comes in, I felt like I got this flashback of
we're trapped in the desert here too,
of Ex Machina, of like a helicopter is dropped off our main cast to the middle of nowhere. Like
basically,
I think only one person's going to be leaving on that helicopter.
That's what it seems like, anyways. Although I'm sure the closest city is however far away. Yeah. But it's like these guys are also rich enough to afford this place. So at least this main guy is.
Yeah.
You know, at first you kind of question, like, oh, is he one of the good? No, he's not one of the good ones.
Nope, he is not. It's not just that he has shitty friends. He is also
I will
awful.
say, please, I wish you would have chosen a better title than Revenge. It's so basic. Like, I have to make sure I say the 2017 Revenge.
It's the worst part about this movie.
It is. It's just like, I don't know. It's just,
so much more of this movie is so like, when I say that to you and you go, ugh, and you look it up and you're like, fucking Revenge.
Yeah.
And then it's like you watch it and you see the color palette and the amazing vistas and the way it's directed.
It's a fucking beautiful movie.
Yeah, score by the composer Rob, who's done a bunch of other horror things, and it's very much like that drive, synthy based, like it's got all these cool elements.
Yeah, it does, and you know, there's some really cool transitions here. I think throughout the whole movie, but especially the beginning with like the bitten apple and like what is that supposed to mean?
Yeah, and it's sort of
there's
like
a lot of metaphors and themes after thinking about this movie for a few days that kind of seeped in there that I wasn't. When I initially watched it, I'm like, okay, I see what this movie is, kind of thing. There's some elements inside of the symbols of what she's doing and how she's becoming this like otherworldly killer,
totally
to some degree.
I mean, there fully is like a hero's journey transformation
pulling
inside
a Die
of a
Hard
cave.
almost the whole movie with no shoes and
Fucking
just like underwear and a t-shirt. Also, you have a stick. coming out of you.
I mean, that is when he pushes her off the cliff.
That part got me. I wasn't thinking it was gonna be that fast.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, oh, they're gonna toy around for a while. And it's like, no, he just fucking pushes her off the cliff.
Yep. And so just pile on that guilt. Yeah. Pile it on.
And she lands on a tree stump, stuck right through her. And then the way that she wakes up and to get off the tree stump.
I honestly, I was watching it going like, how the fuck do you even get out of that?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
And it's like, oh, you have to burn the rest of the tree to the ground. Wild. And you're like, Jesus, that is some hardcore.
It is a very Christ pose she's in, by the way.
It is. And it's funny that you mentioned John McClane, because I thought about that a lot. I was like, she is like, and I love that. I love that she isn't, it's not like she is some kind of like mercenary. It's like she gets tired and she has to like rest, and she's like unsure of like things that she's doing, and then she gets better. We watch her learn over time, and that's so interesting to see those little cobbled together elements as you go along with it. And it's a movie that I think when you think about the actual like how well directed it is for a first time. I mean, this is her first feature-length movie.
Yeah, she did an episode of The Sandman.
Yep. And then I think she's done a short film before
but
Revenge.
Pretty unknown.
Yeah, and you just go, that level of confidence is pretty amazing.
I mean, that's a great first movie. I didn't realize that was her first movie, I don't think. I thought I saw she did some other things, but nothing I'd ever seen or heard of. But yeah, it's kind of, Jen, the protagonist in this film, after she gets killed, she doesn't speak the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, so after like 20 something minutes of the movie, the rest of her performance is mute, which I found really fascinating. Yeah. And you almost don't notice. And you don't really, like, that's why I said she turned into the Predator.
I don't know that I did.
Yeah, no, she doesn't say a word after that, the rest of the movie.
Because she's so expressive.
I mean, she's screaming, obviously, but that's not dialogue.
Yeah, it is. She's not like toying with
That's why I said
guys.
She turns into the Predator, because he never talks. You know, he just he sneaks around the corner or whatever. And, she's very sly. You're following the trail of blood for a while, obviously. Mm-hmm. And, they get to the lake and they're like, oh, okay, now what?
Yeah.
So, and, she's very sly. She's, like you said, learning. Then she gets into this cave, which I think is a big part of the movie. And this is really the transformation. She realizes the peyote that the helicopter guy gave them at the beginning was still in her necklace.
It's a pretty great it's a pretty great foreshadowing that when they're all partying, he's like, whoa, that stuff's too powerful. And he's like, I know a guy that took that and sawed his own leg off.
With no blood.
Right? And you just go, that's great foreshadowing. I forgot all about it.
Yeah, that was really, I agree. That was, I was like, oh, very clever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how she gets the stick out. And you're like, oh, okay, like, and what a painful scene. Oh. And she does the beer can thing on her belly, which is so strange. And I'm like, why aren't you using the other side? Yeah. The clean side.
Because then you don't get the symbolic fucking phoenix across your belly.
Exactly, yeah. And so she has this, which is like, obviously, again, more themes in the movie that are rising.
Rebirth, and and again, the hero's journey of coming out of the cave. And normally, I hate the fucking double whammy, it was all a dream thing. But the two waking up from the peyote dreams, and he's right there and he blows her head off, and then she wakes up again, and then another thing happens. I was like, that's okay.
Yeah, that's like a quadruple like peyote dream.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I was like, seeing her head explode like a watermelon, I was like, because for a minute, like to your point, when she gets pushed off the cliff early on, it happens so early that it shocks you that when she got her head blown off, even though it was a dream, I was like, maybe that's what's going to happen in this movie next. I have no idea.
Some of the gore in this movie was rough for me. I'm not that. Earlier you said I don't seek out horror movies, but I think you're wrong. Since I've started this podcast, I absolutely do now. And I enjoy a great horror movie, and even a cheesy one sometimes. But the ones that I kind of never searched for are the gory ones.
Yeah.
And just because I have a weak stomach maybe or something. Yeah. But like here, when she's trying to take that stick out and she's like cutting around it, I'm just like, bleh, bleh. And then later when the guy's trying to pull glass out of his foot, fuck that. I can't even watch
like
that.
Second knuckle. and he's doing it too. He's going,
you're giving me chills just thinking about it. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, he's a horrible human being and I want to see him dead. But like this in between of just him trying to get it out, you're like, oh my God. And I love it because this is the guy who earlier is like, he's chilly. Well, they're looking for he's chilly, and he gets in the in the car, and he gets in the SUV and warms his hands up, and I'm
that
like,
guy's obviously the worst. He's the rapist, but all of them are complacent.
But digging around in his foot for that piece of glass is pretty. Like watching it again this time, I was like, oh yeah, and I remembered thinking to myself like, I wonder what Paul's going to think of this
flashlight, right? Flashlight glass.
It's so good.
But yeah, that Phoenix, that's her new label that gives her more confidence now, and she's, like you said, rebirth. It's out of her stomach.
Yeah,
transformation like a phoenix. And then they start splitting up. Right,
of course.
We got to cover more ground. Yep. And this is a Hitchcockian atmosphere. If you want to make it feel like a desolate place, just go out in the middle of desert and feel like this feels like I'm walking 20 miles to this place, or everywhere.
Well, the shot where she's on this kind of cliff's ledge and she's looking out with the binoculars and sees the flash of the mirror against nothing. There's just like it's Tatooine, and then there's this little sun glint, and she goes,
"That's like
that's them."
That's somebody's like mirror on their car, or something.
And you just go, "That's so good." Again, it's her learning, like, okay, how do I find him, and then kind of spotting that.
The other thing, the sock tourniquet.
Oh, yeah.
After he gets his ear blown off.
Oh God. Yeah, that whole
where he's
sequence.
Just like,
it looked like, didn't it remind you of Fargo? It reminded me of like the stuck paper towels on Buscemi's face in Fargo.
I got fucking shot in the face. I went and got the fucking money. I got shot fucking picking it up.
And it is kind of the same thing because he's just this guy that like, he's not athletic. He's just this schlubby, shitty guy who took advantage of her because she was rubbing up against him, and he was like,
was he the one looking through the binoculars, but it was like right on her lips?
No,
right?
it was that's the other guy who we get the great slow motion of him eating the chocolate.
Oh man.
Right, when she's like, when you're like, oh, maybe you can help stop this rape from happening, and you just get it's just this and chocolate, and I was like, yeah, a woman directed this scene for sure, because that is what us fat guys when we're eating look like to women
in slow motion.
It's just it's so fucked up. But I think the whole cat and mouse that happens with
Richard.
Stan. Stan is the one who warmed himself in the SUV. Dimitri's the first guy who gets it.
Yes, in the leg.
The stabs through knife. The eyes. Whoa.
Again, another brutal scene.
And I think even after the push off the cliff, the first time I saw this, I didn't realize how cutthroat the rest of the movie was going to be. I thought, oh, maybe she kind of sneaks up on him, but like they're all very intimate kills, which just goes to show you like that. Yeah, to your point of the Predator thing, like any empathy in her brain has shut itself off after she's done this peyote and realized like, oh, I'm not just going to survive. I'm going to be the only one who leaves this desert. Right. And you just go, yeah, I'm with you, lady. Let's watch the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
And it gets the second one with Stan. Just fantastic. The whole like,
and that goes on for a while too. It's just like 20 minutes.
Sneaking along behind that SUV, the smashing of the glass so that he sticks his foot, like all of that is just like, it's so well choreographed from a direction standpoint too.
Yeah, it was really directed beautifully. It's really surprising that's her first film.
I know, man. That's what I'm saying. Like that's like the level of confidence is so cool.
And although it may be graphic at times, which kind of makes me squeamish, it's still entertaining to watch. You obviously know what's coming. The comeuppance are coming, And
in that way, we want it. Even if you are squeamish for it, you're like, yes, make them pay.
Yeah, like, exactly.
It's not hostile. Like, you feel good about all the pain that's being inflicted in the second half of this movie.
Yeah, and having that... Yeah, having that perspective, I think, is always important. And it's nice to, again, get it from a different point of view that we're not used to, and all the little things you're pointing out are making me like this movie more and more too. The more we talk about it.
Yeah, my second time watching this, because I'd watched it once, then said we should do it, and then
just change the name. Change the name.
Just the other night is with the second time I watched it, and I was even more impressed with things like, you know, even those two windows in the house, the teal and pink.
Well, and the blue one is when she finds Richard back at the house, right? And he's naked.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's the first one, when the guys see her, it's through the pink one.
That's right.
And then the teal one is when she sees him. Like, there's all these little nuggets like that I'm like,
very cool.
It's very, very smart that way. But you're right. So she gets back to the house. This last sequence.
I don't know if I put that together, actually.
This last sequence, I had, like, it is so...
It's fucking wild.
It's the most intense naked scene I've seen since Eastern Promises. Where it's just like naked people sliding around in blood.
It might be more epic.
More epic than that. I mean, it's fucking nuts. Because
it is. And Richard it's one shot, right?
Yeah. Richard gets back for a while and he, jerks off and goes for a swim, takes a shower, calls his wife, and then he's like, all right. And he thinks he's home free because he's like, well, whatever, you know, like
the helicopter will be here in 30 minutes.
I'm done. And then here's a sound while he's in the shower. Again, the confidence level, like it is shot so fucking good. And this whole, like, there's this island hallway in the middle of the house that they're chasing each other around.
Yep.
Fuck. It is so, and he gets the gut wound and he's just... They're sliding through his blood.
I don't know how the camera people did it, honestly.
I don't either.
I really don't.
Everybody had to be
what kind of shoes were they wearing?
In fake blood. Yeah. What kind of shoes were they wearing that didn't leave the footprints through the trail? Did they have to make the trail again each time that they went around? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I have no clue how they shot that, but it's a pretty...
There might be someone right behind the camera crew just
sweeping it back down again.
Evening it out or something.
It's possible.
Interesting.
Because there's no shoe prints. It's all bare feet prints.
It is a showdown.
Yeah.
And there's so much fucking blood. Like you said, the POV choking shot.
Oh, yeah.
Again, you know, women always have to put up a little fucking fight, right? Like that's
oh, fuck.
A little too on the nose, right?
It is, but also you're just like, we're here. Let's chef kiss this motherfucker goodnight.
Yeah.
Like, it really is. And yeah, and then the choking is happening and she just gets that gun right in there.
Yep.
Like, I mean, it is so...
My favorite part of the whole scene is the infomercial going on in the background the whole time.
With those two vapid ladies in those little dresses. Just
it's like QVC kind of like something like that, like American Shopping Network or some infomercial basically.
Something that 2 days before she would have been laying on that bed with her lollipop just kind of staring at, you know, off into the distance, no big deal. And then it's like, y'all had to go and fuck with the wrong girl. And it's so, you know, and I think I love the way that we end with just the sound of the chopper coming. And we're like, we don't know. Like, we don't need to know. It's about the movie starts when the chopper got there. It ends when the chopper gets there again. And that's
all you need to know.
All
that's
you
the
need.
bookends. You don't need to go into their personal lives. Just know that they have them.
Yeah.
Right?
Or, three of them used to have them.
Pretty wild movie, though. I'll give you that. It's a wild movie, definitely graphic, but fun. I had fun with it. And again, looked beautiful. Yeah, it looked beautiful. And there's so many moments. There's a lot of great moments in this of like, shake your fist, like, fuck yeah. Like there's, I mean, it does have, it's funny because you go, if you remove that sexual politics and obviously the rape angle to it, you're like, it's kind of Commando. Totally.
Right? It's like, I gotta go and kill all these fuckers.
It's Rambo.
Right?
It's all that shit.
And you just go, but when you switch these couple of elements, it becomes this new, very fresh thing that has all this subtext to it that it didn't before. And that's what I always go for when I'm watching horror.
Sure.
Again, I think that the fact that the director, cinematographer, like the whole cast, most of the cast, I think with the exception of Jen, we're all French. And it's partially
did they make it in
subtitled.
America? Because that looks like very American landscape.
Yeah, I think it's... I think so. Okay. I think that's right. I'm not entirely sure.
Cool. Just change the name. Other than that, great great time, fun time for sure.
Yeah.
We will continue this. Our next International Horror Festival is going to be One Cut from the Dead from 2017. Can't wait to talk about that one. But in between those, we are going to have that one episode of, what are we doing?
It's going to be that one.
Oh, it's Poltergeist.
That one scene from Poltergeist, baby.
That's right. Here we go.
We're rolling with the horror, man.
Yeah.
I told you
Halloween's not over.
Yeah, we have stuff to make up for.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, you guys.